back to the Vitus Nucleus update video. First video in the actual build going on here. So we'll take a look what's going on in the garage right now. We've got the SE frame completely stripped down. And all the parts that came off of it have been cleaned. They're over here. And as you can see, these are not all the parts needed to make a bike complete. But we're keeping the brakes, keeping the drivetrain, the fork, the wheels, the seat, things that are going to be changed. Got some new brake pads, new dropper post, new handlebars, and a new stem. And then over here we got the Vitus frame. Headset's been pressed in, bottom brackets swapped over, same crank, same pedals. Actually had that work done at Outpost because I didn't have the right tools, and figured I'd let the experts take care of that. So that's ready to be built, but today I'm actually going to focus on what is behind this frame. One of the wheels, which I've pulled off, cleaned, almost fully cleaned, taken the rim strip out because what we're attempting to do is go tubeless on this. So I've gotten one Maxxis Ardent tubeless ready tire, and these are actually the same tires that were on the Giant Talon that I tested, which I liked a lot. So I figured let me do one first, make sure it actually works and seats up on here first, and if that works then I'll get the second one and knock out the second wheel. So there's no shortage of videos on YouTube that explain how to do this process, and there's a couple different methods, of course. What I'm going to do is Gorilla Tape, and like I said, I've already cleaned the wheel, and I've got these little alcohol swabs that I'm going to go through the center. Well, actually, first I'm going to try to clean my hands off, make sure I don't have any grease residue left on them. Just going to work around with the alcohol swab until it gets a little dried out, and then get another one. I've made it a full way around with these. Another thing worth mentioning in my little tubeless setup here is I have two of these Schwalbe, or however you say it, inner tubes. These wheels are Schrader style, drilled for a Schrader hole, and they actually have threaded valves on them. So I've taken one and just cut all the inner tube out just to use it as a valve. Like I said, it's threaded, so it's got a little nut that goes on it as well. So I'm hoping that'll work out. The other concern is that when it goes in there, you can actually see some of the metal. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it doesn't sit in there as I would hope that it would. And hopefully between the sealant and the Gorilla Tape and the pressure of threading the nut on, it'll create a proper seal. We'll find out. Next thing I need to do is, hopefully I got the right width of Gorilla Tape. These are only 19 millimeters wide internal width on these rims. It's a little tricky to figure out, more than I kind of expected, because dealing with the inner concave of the rim. So I've seen a couple different methods of how to do this taping. The one I'll go with is overlapping at the valve hole. That will probably give me the most chance of success, especially considering, God, these things fray a lot, huh? Especially considering how the valve doesn't seem to be seating as I really want it to. So the problem I'm running into is that it's such a small amount that I'm having to not use of this tape that eventually when I'm starting to pull it, it pops off. Got a larger but older roll of Gorilla Tape here, and I'm thinking that might actually be a better bet. Yeah, and it's tearing a lot cleaner too than the fraying that I was getting on this thin piece. So we'll roll with this. progressively narrower and narrower each time that I peel it back, to the point that it's not even really getting on the shoulder anymore. I'm going to start this all over again. It's on. What I need to do is really make sure it's pushed in there as good as it can be. Come back and get this little thread. Next job is to poke a hole. Okay, nice and tight fit, which is probably a good sign. Some of the other information I've read is, when you're putting this in, hand tight's good, don't over tighten it. But the fact that this, on the rim side, on the inside, is still showing like a tiny little gap, I think I'm going to crank down pretty good on this. It's definitely looking better from both sides. Still going to go a little farther with it. It's time to mount the tire. So I'm first going to make sure that the bead of the tire is clean. So I'm just going around this with a little alcohol swab. Probably not necessary, but why not do it? And my goal is to do this entirely without any wheel levers, or tire levers, whatever the heck they're called. I don't want to damage the bead at all. Hopefully the valve itself is not interfering with any part of the bead. And we've got a little gap down here to pour the sealant in. So now it's time to shake like crazy. Get those little particles at the bottom mixed in. Jeez, those little particles settled down to the bottom already. So, now begins the thumb wrestling. And I know if I need to, I can use some soapy water or something like that. But that actually went in extremely easily. So now it's time to put some air in it. And that's another thing that's going to be a little interesting because got the compressor on. It's got air, but I really don't know how quickly it's going to fill this tire up. And that's why I've got the goggles on, because I don't want to blow something up in my own face. So. Okay, so this camera cut out, battery died at some point, but I did manage to get air into it. So it's holding air right now. It was leaking some sealant right at the base of the screw on this valve stem. Like I said at the start of the video, this came from a tube. It was never intended for this purpose. If I have to do it again, or when I go to do the same procedure on the front wheel, I may get a little rubber grommet to go here. I may also get another little rubber grommet to go on the inside, and hopefully that won't be an issue. But for now, it's holding air. I'm going to stick a gauge on it and see how much pressure there is and adjust, and then keep rotating it to make sure that that sealant gets distributed where it needs to be. But for now, it's looking pretty good, and the next step is going to be starting to assemble all these pieces together onto this frame. So I hope you like this video. Stay tuned. Like, subscribe, share. That helps the channel grow, so that'll be awesome. Until next time, have a good one.